Hello everyone. So in this video, I wanted to talk about and give you some idea about subtask in Jira. Now, of course, we all know about subtask. So um, you must be wondering the best way of using a subtask, right? Now, from my experience, I can tell you that. And by the way, the question or the topic of this video is how many subtask types we should create in Jira. We all know about issue types, right? And issue types, as we all know, is basically a way to create a type of activity, and based on the name of that particular issue type, and based on the workflow associated with that particular issue type, and based on what screens you want to associate for what operations on what project, you can actually configure Jira to a great extent, right? And at the same time, when you have issue types, and if you're using Jira Cloud Premium, or if you're using Jira Data Center, then you can create hierarchy, right? So an issue type in Jira is fine because you have the option to create as many issue types as you can, but of course, don't really create hundreds of issue types. Always try to reuse, or not really reuse, but create issue types when you think it is absolutely necessary. And sometimes it is just better to use a field, like to further segregate the work. But in this video, let us talk about subtasks. Now, I don't really think from my experience that you need to create like so many subtasks. Just like issue types, you can and you have the option to create multiple subtask types. For example, you can create a subtask here called as test case, right? And I'm creating this subtask here, which is called as test case, which already exists in my Jira instance, because sometimes it makes sense to create a subtask of a specific name, like basically using a name like test case. And let me give you an example. Many years ago, when those popular test management plugins or apps or modules or whatever it was called, or it is called now. It is now called as apps. It used to be called as plugins and apps, or apps. It was called as plugin, then add-ons, and now it is called as apps. So basically, when I used to provide consultation around Jira, and one of my earliest Jira, like when I was basically learning Jira, I think it was probably in 2007, when I was like very new to Jira. I was just trying to do wonderful things with it. It has been 17 plus years now. I got a requirement where Jira had to be used for test management. Now what I did, I created a new issue type called test campaign, and then also created a subtask type called as test case. Now, what we used to do back then, we used to create a test campaign, and then under a test campaign, we used to have test cases as a subtask. Now, this is, of course, not really a great way of doing test management in Jira, but to be honest, I'm talking about those cases where there is no plugin or an app like test management for Jira or X-Ray, Zephyr, right? Because using this approach, you can definitely create a test campaign, and then you can break it down into test cases, and this will work. But if you have to redo those test cases for maybe another test cycle, so there was no concept of test cycle. It was all about or maybe different executions for different environments. You basically had to import set of test cases again, or you can go to a test campaign and then maybe use a field to basically say, okay, we did this on this environment or for this cycle. So it is, of course, a very simple way of doing it, but because test management is like a totally new, or it is a separate process in itself, and test management is very important when it comes to any software development or anything to do with software or something in IT, right? Now, in this case, I think it makes sense to use something like test case, but sometimes people want to create the subtask of a specific name which is not really like relevant, or it is relevant because they think it is relevant, because they just want to make these things super clear for the end user. For example, if you're working with another example, so let us say you're working, and just to give you some context, I did some work for like a very big travel agency or a company who is into bookings and everything in India. They were using Jira, and basically for them it was, of course, they had a website, they still have a website, and they used to only focus on promotions and basically running some test campaigns based on different seasons. For example, if let us say Diwali is coming or Christmas is coming or some festival is coming, they used to run. That is how these companies work. They basically have test campaigns. So every quarter or every month, they have multiple test campaigns, like literally multiple test campaigns. And they basically had, for each and every campaign, a separate project in Jira. So when I came in, I told them, okay, you don't really need to create a separate project. Just create an epic, and then under an epic, create a story. And their task was, for a particular campaign, was not really the actual marketing of it. It was more about creating. I mean, there was marketing involved, but what they were doing in Jira was to create a landing page. So for each and every campaign, there used to be a landing page. So all of their small projects were basically creating a landing page and then creating like banner or graphics within that particular project. And what they were doing is they basically were creating, or they had subtasks for different type of activities. Like one subtask was called as banner. The other subtask was called as I think I remember. I think it was basically some videos and then thumbnail. So you can imagine, because for each and every marketing campaign, they basically were doing a set of activities always, and they were basically using a different type of subtask, just to make it super clear. So I think there is nothing wrong with it. You can do that, but if you keep on doing that, over the period of time, your Jira will be messed up. And all you need to do is you just need to create, and I'll give you two suggestions in this case. You can, of course, use a subtask, right? So create a task and then subtask. But in this case, a better way of doing it would be, and I'm saying this because, not always, but I'm saying this because, so one option is that just create a subtask and have a field for saying the category, like what category of a task or a subtask it is. Is it a graphics task or a banner task or a copywriting, or someone has to basically review the content or translate the content, right? A typical thing that you would do for doing these campaigns. Now, if you have just one team, then one project will probably work. But ideally, if you have a separate team where you need to coordinate the work, where you need help from a separate graphics team, or a team who is doing translation, or a team who is doing banner designing, right? Or maybe some other work, because they're not always working on just one campaign at a time. They're doing multiple things. They're just given a task based on the campaign or the work or the next upcoming thing. They just need to do a task by a certain date. And because this company was doing these things quite aggressively, a lot was dependent on these tasks to be completed on time, because when they had this page ready, they then had to promote on social media and other platforms. So they basically were looking for a better way of doing it, and because they had different teams, I suggested them a separate project. And they had one project where they were keeping track of the main campaign, and then based on the work, they were creating tasks for other teams or other projects. But because we are talking about an epic, they had everything just in one view. And good thing is that even now, because now we have Jira Premium, or on Jira Data Center you have advanced roadmaps anyways, back then it was Portfolio. That was, I think, recently acquired. So I'm talking about 2015 end, I guess, I remember correctly, when Atlassian acquired it, if I remember correctly. I think it was definitely in early 2016. So they basically had Portfolio, and they were using Portfolio to have like a consolidated view of not just one epic but multiple epics across different, for different campaigns, and everything was there in just one view. So yeah, I thought I'll probably give you an idea. So basically in these cases, or basically in similar cases, you don't really need to like overdo these things, like create multiple issue types or create multiple subtasks. In this case, because we are talking about dispatching work for the other teams, just have different projects if the work has to be done by different projects or different teams. So yeah, hopefully I've given you some ideas right in this video, and I thought I'll probably share this with you. And yeah, that is it. Let me know if you have any questions on this topic. All right, that is it. That is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. Thank you very much. Bye bye.